Oh, a layman. What is a layman? Is it someone who always lays down? Huh? Actually, I'm not very fond of this term. I don't like this segregation. It sort of divides Buddhists up into first and second class. I do wish people wouldn't think of themselves like that. I'm only a layman, you know. We are, first and foremost, human beings. And this is what we should try to discover the meaning of, you know. We don't know what it is yet. We know very, very little about ourselves. And we limit ourselves with these terms, you know. I'm only a layman or laywoman. Instead of really finding out what it means to be human. Huh? Each person, certainly deep inside themselves, consider themselves very important and very special, and of course they are, because no one else can live for us. And if we don't live well and make a good job of our living, well, what's it for? What is our life for, you know? Most people don't do a very good job of living. You see, because first of all, we don't understand ourselves. We see ourselves as just one of the 5.5 billion other human beings in this world. And therefore, we think nothing special. This is on the surface. Deep inside, we do feel special, but on the surface, we don't live as if we're special people, as we should do. A special person would live very mindfully, and I think this is the whole foundation, mindfulness and awareness. You talk about practice in daily life. I become a little bit suspicious of the word practice. People ask me how to do it. I say there is no how. There is no how to breathe. We just breathe. We don't ask how to breathe, we just breathe non-stop. If we don't breathe, we die. So it's something that we've been doing all our lives. Nothing special. Very, very ordinary. But therein lies the specialness. We're looking for something special, but never seeing what is. We're already special. Without doing anything. Just as we are. And only if we can take stock of ourselves as we are, will it be possible to evolve further, because that's what it's all about, evolution. It means also recognizing and accepting our negative side. Because we've all got our negative side. Things that we're not very happy about. Things that cause us a great deal of anguish sometimes when we see that we are deficient spiritually in various ways. But these things have to be accepted as what they are, not glossed over, not rationalized or justified, but recognized just as what they are and accepted. Okay, I've got these qualities. These qualities are present in my mind as part of my character or personality. So, what do we do about them? What can we do with them? Is it possible to turn them around and use them so that they become positive instead of negative? Perhaps it is, but it will not be possible to do that unless we first accept them. Some of the qualities that we might consider negative, like greed, anger, selfishness, and so on, might long ago in our primitive history and prehistory might have even been positive. Because life in those days, hundreds of thousands of years ago, maybe millions of years ago, life was a very precarious business. It would not have been possible in those times to think much about others in a caring way. We would have to think of ourselves most of the time, because it would have been a matter of survival. So greed would have been a survival instinct. And as such, it would have been positive. But now, at our stage of development, where we've reached such a level of material prosperity, we cannot live like that anymore. We must not. We must live consciously as members of a society, considering and caring for others, because we see others just like ourselves. So, when we understand this, we want to take our evolution, our further development in hand. And so, we adopt certain practices which we have heard will be beneficial and will bear good fruit. Things like keeping precepts, dana, meditation, and so on. But often when we adopt such practices, we are taking them in from outside instead of letting them come from inside as a result of our understanding of Dharma. And when something comes from outside, like from an outside authority, it's not our own. And we will depend upon an external authority, either a book that somebody has written before, maybe even hundreds or thousands of years ago, or some figure in the present. So this is still not our own. Recently, and for the past 2 years, there has been a very strong controversy or scandal concerning a very famous monk in Thailand. You know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to mention his name. It's not necessary. And many people are very shaken by this. As I go around, I'm quite often asked about this. What do I think? Is he guilty of what he is accused of or not? I say, I don't know. I don't particularly care. Because my faith is not in a person. My faith is in the Dharma. And so no matter what other people may do, my faith in Dharma is not shaken. But if we have our faith in a person, in a personality, our faith may be shaken. You see, I've heard many people saying about this particular monk that he was an arahant. He's been promoted as such. And as far as I know, he never did anything to discourage this. By keeping quiet and accepting people's worship, he even encouraged it. So this is not a positive thing to do. Moreover, he was too good looking. And for a monk, that is dangerous. Also, he was very aware of his good looks. And he's shown in many photographs posing like a movie star. Consequently, because of his fame and popularity, he stirred up a lot of jealousy. Perhaps it couldn't be avoided. Professional jealousy. Other monks became jealous of him. And obviously many people were out to get him. I don't believe all the things that have been reported about him. Some of them were very clearly lies. But other things, it makes one wonder. However, guilty or not, this situation provides us with an opportunity to explain to people, look, your faith should be in the Dharma, in the truth, not in a person. Because there's always the very great danger of being disappointed if you have your faith in a person. Sometimes people ask me, how many disciples do you have? I say, I don't have any disciples. I don't want people to follow me. I want people to follow what they know to be right. Because if people follow me and I go the wrong way, they will also go the wrong way. So instead of saying to people, I won't let you down, I will say, on the contrary, I will let you down. That is, not intentionally or deliberately, but just by the fact of being imperfect. an unenlightened, this side of enlightenment, somewhere along the line, without meaning to, I would let you down. Such is the nature of personality. So if we're looking for a savior or a Superman, we will probably be disappointed. And that won't be because of the person who we expect to save us, but because of our own unrealistic expectations. Now sometimes the Buddhist way is very hard, while ways such as the Christian way, which have a kind of savior figure, seem to be much more comforting. There's someone to rely on when we feel weak, someone to turn to. In Buddhism, who can we turn to? When the Buddha said, don't pray to me, don't believe me, don't follow me, you find out what is true for yourselves. So when we feel weak, who can we turn to? Is there anyone? So sometimes it is very hard. I was a Christian once, though when I was a Christian, I didn't know why I was a Christian. Now I'm not a Christian, I know why I'm not a Christian. When I was a Christian, I didn't understand well about that, but I used to go to church, I used to believe in God, I used to pray and do the usual things that ordinary, normal Christians do. I can't say that I followed the teachings of Jesus in my life, but then again, not many Christians do. Just like not many Buddhists apply the teachings of the Buddha in their lives. In many cases, or most cases we might say, it's just a name, a means of identifying with a large group of people, and therefore, feeling not alone. A name is kind of like an insurance policy. There are many kinds of insurance policies that people take out. A family is an insurance policy, where people, they think, oh, when I'm old, my children will look after me. I don't have any children, therefore I don't have such an insurance policy. My books are my children, and can I depend upon them when I grow old? Money, of course, is an insurance policy. Friends are an insurance policy. Religion is a kind of insurance policy, something that we can fall back upon when misfortune strikes. Something to console us and assure us that, someone up there is in control. But Buddhism doesn't give us this kind of insurance policy. It teaches us about our karma, which really is, at our stage, something like the Christian belief in God. Can the Christians show us their God? Can they prove it and demonstrate it? They cannot. Now, on the other hand, we cannot disprove God like that. But looking at things objectively, I think there is much less to support the idea of such a God than there is to support it. I mean, very few people would believe in mermaids, for example, today. We can't prove that there are no mermaids, but it is highly unlikely. So although we can't prove that there is a God like the Christians believe, it is highly unlikely. And moreover, the responsibility for providing proof is on those who claim that there are such things, not on those who don't believe. Those who believe have the responsibility to provide proof, not those who don't believe. If you don't believe, how can you prove there is no God? So the responsibility is on the believers, not the unbelievers. So, with our concept of karma, can we demonstrate it to others? We talk a lot about it as Buddhists. We believe it, but do we know? Now be careful, because I'm not saying there is no such thing. By speaking about it like this, I want to help people to find in themselves a firm foundation that will not crumble when they are challenged by others. And somewhere along the line, we will be challenged if we hold this concept very firmly. Somebody will say to us, how do you know there is such a thing? Can you prove it? And if they say like that to us, what will we say? Can we prove it? Can we demonstrate that there is a law of karma? We can demonstrate the law of cause and effect. We can demonstrate, like Isaac Newton said, that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Well, perhaps not like that, but we can see that every action, everything that we do, has an effect immediately. I mean, look what I'm doing now. I'm affecting you. Are you aware of this? I am, and that is my purpose in going around to give talks. I want to influence people. Of course, I will be quite honest about it, and I will warn you that that is my purpose. So you must be careful, because all around us, constantly, there are people trying to influence us. But in this, I know my own mind. I am not trying to influence you for my benefit, as many other people do, trying to manipulate people for their benefit. I have found that the Dharma is something beneficial, something that everyone needs. However, not many people want it. So if we reach this stage where we not only need Dharma in our lives, but we want it, that is already a high stage. And that is what has brought you here, like this. If you would analyze it, you would find that you cannot explain it. Why you have this yen, this interest in Dharma. You can see only part of it, a very, very small part of it. And the rest you just cannot explain. Why you and why not so many others have this interest. Do you think you can find a beginning to it? Where it began? What has brought you here like this? What has brought us together? It's really a very interesting thing to ponder about. Huh? we can do something to develop interest in Dharma. But the foundation must be there already. And this is from the past. You see, when we are born, I can't really say anything about previous life because I don't know. When we are born, not long afterwards, as the baby grows, certain tendencies can be observed in it. Inclinations which turn into habits, preferences, likes and dislikes, which are very, very powerful things. And we wonder, where did these things come from? Because they have not been taught to the child by anyone. We suppose that they come from our previous lives. We call them accumulations. And we act upon such things. And such determines our characters. From, I think we can say from the moment of conception in this life, even while we're in the womb for 9 months, we are being influenced. And the process goes on throughout our entire life. And generally, we're not much aware of it. We think we are ourselves, but actually, we are more a combination of countless influences. That are not of our own doing. Our parents' influence, first of all, our siblings' influence, friends, teachers, strangers, even enemies, our society, culture, religion, political system, food, clothes, fashion, weather, music, TV. If you examine it, you'll find so many things at work upon us, constantly, molding us and making us what we are. I mean, we haven't chosen to be like this, have we? We didn't have much choice about it at all. It happened to us. How do people become handsome or ugly? Nobody wants to be ugly, yet there are lots of ugly people around. Everyone wants to be handsome. How do people become handsome? And what is handsome anyway? Is this just an idea that lots of people have, a kind of a standard agreed upon? So, when we begin to understand about this, there is the possibility of freedom, becoming free of it, becoming more in control than we are. I mean, I was saying in the BMS last night that because of our conditioning, we cannot really be held totally responsible for our behavior. And afterwards, when it was question time, someone stood up and said that Doesn't Buddhism teach that we are responsible for our actions? Yes, it does, but within limits. You see, if we had complete control over ourselves, then we would be completely responsible for our actions. But since we do not have free will, that is, our capacity to choose is limited by our conditioning. Therefore, we cannot be held totally responsible for our actions. However, ignorance of the law is not an excuse. If we put our hand into the fire, we will still be burned whether we understand that fire burns or not. So ignorance of the law is no excuse. But if we look at it in this way, by thinking, no, I am not enlightened, and therefore I am not totally responsible for my actions, we can be more easy with ourselves. Sometimes, when we become aware of our imperfections, we feel very uneasy about ourselves. We even hate ourselves at times. And this is a horrible thing, that people can hate themselves for being what they are. I think we have to be a bit more lenient on ourselves, more tolerant with ourselves. If we think about it, we are really very weak beings. But we've been taught to cultivate a brave appearance. And we are therefore afraid to admit our weakness. Especially men. Men are taught, well, boys are taught, shouldn't cry. But we've all got tear ducts. And sometimes I think crying is very useful. But we bottle up our emotions. Things get blocked inside. There's no flow. We don't know how to express ourselves. We are afraid to admit our fear, our weakness. But only by admitting our weakness can we find strength. If there is no weakness, there's no question about strength. If there is no fear, there'll be no question of courage. Courage comes from fear, and strength comes from weakness. It's just like morality. If we were not capable of killing and stealing, lying and cheating and so on, there would be no question of morality. Wouldn't have any meaning at all. Our code of morality has meaning only because we still have the capacity to be immoral. And by restraining ourselves, we become moral. If we lived alone on an island, we couldn't steal anyone's property. We couldn't lie. We couldn't commit adultery. And so on. So these 5 precepts cover our relationship with others. And we need something, a guideline, to govern our behavior, our interactions with others. We can't do just whatever we feel like doing. Well, we can, but we mustn't. We have to restrain ourselves. So when we apply these 5 precepts in our relationships with others, we are considering other people. It's not for ourselves, just for ourselves. It is for and because of others. So daily life provides us with many opportunities for growth. How to deal with the many different kinds of situations that arise in daily life. There is no book with all the answers to all the questions we can possibly ask, or with descriptions of how to behave in all the situations that might arise. There is not. So we cannot depend upon a book. We have to depend upon our own understanding of how life is. You see, we have to begin with ourselves. It's the only place we can begin. Understanding ourselves and our feelings and so on. What do we want from life? It's a legitimate question. What do we want from life? Let us ask it very clearly and answer it clearly too, honestly. What do we want from life? I have been to about 40 countries. And while I have seen that there are differences between people, I have seen too that the similarities between people are more numerous and more important. Everywhere I have seen people very much concerned about happiness and suffering, sadness, friendship, kindness, and so on. Everyone wants to be happy. Nobody wants to suffer. No one wants to be sad. Everywhere people like others to be kind to them and help them, not to hurt them in any way. I think I can say that you would also feel like this, no? You wish to be happy, not to feel sad, not to suffer, to have people help you and be kind to you, not to hurt you, right? So if we understand this in ourselves, we will also understand about others, and it will help us to know what to do in our relations with others. Very general guideline, which has been called the Golden Rule, which can be found in all religions in one form or another. Do unto others what you would like others to do to you. Now, if people would try to apply this in their lives, they would find that life has a meaning. They would have a purpose in life. Unfortunately, many people do not have a real purpose in life. They have not discovered a meaning in their lives. Their lives are empty and without direction. Mine was until I was 24. That's when I stumbled across Dharma. Well, I don't think I could say that either, but it's when I became aware of Dharma and my eyes were opened. 24. And by that time, I'd already done many bad and silly things, which I regret now. But I guess because I did so many bad and silly things before, it helps me to understand others who are in that situation, who are at that level, with their eyes closed. And I know that we don't have to live like that forever, that our eyes may open and we can understand and change. Many people know nothing of the inner life, the life of the spirit. They live on the material level. We all have a physical body which we can see and touch. It's sort of solid. And because of that, and because the mind or the spiritual side of our nature is intangible, cannot be seen or touched or felt, they think that the material body, the material aspect of our lives, is more important than the spiritual aspect. And so there's a great imbalance in their lives, living just on the material level. But these two sides of our nature must be taken care of. We have to take care of the physical body. If we do not, it easily becomes sick and breaks down, which causes us a lot of trouble. But we also must take care of the spiritual side, not to neglect this, because if we neglect it, we dry up inside. We become just like an empty seashell, beautiful on the outside, but no life there. We really must pay attention to the inner life, because actually we are much more spiritual than physical. You see, we perceive the world, we encounter the world through our senses: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. We have no other way of knowing about the world except through our senses. When we touch something, what happens? There is this sensation of touch, the contact between the physical and the object, the sense and the sense object. And immediately a message is flashed to the brain so quickly that we don't realize it, we're not aware of it. It's so quick. And in the brain, the sensation of touch is interpreted and translated. Touch something now. What sensation do you get from the thing you're touching? Smooth, rough, hot, cold, pleasant, unpleasant, but that is an interpretation, isn't it? And then suppose we touch something hot. Hot cup, for example. This is not hot, but suppose it is. Oh, hot. Huh? It's so fast, this process, we don't perceive it. But the message is flashed back. Hot. Put it down. Danger. So, it's actually the mind that is in control. The psychic part of our nature, not the physical. When we die and the mind is gone, the body feels nothing. We can no longer see or hear or smell or touch. Taste, no longer. The body is still there, but the consciousness has gone. body can't function anymore. So it is the mind that is in control. Therefore, we are psychic beings, much more than we are physical beings. But many people, maybe most people, don't know about this, and so they insist upon living on the material level, living in the mud, not rising beyond. That is a very sad thing, that most people in this lifetime would discover very, very little of their potential. You see, we depend upon others to teach us. If no one teaches us, we don't learn very much. We depend upon the standards of others. Standards such as beautiful, ugly, good, bad, nice, nasty, and so on. We adopt other people's standards. And if people don't point out to us something beautiful, oh, look at this beautiful flower, look at this sunset, most people would not see it themselves. Only when you say, oh, isn't it beautiful? Wow, they say. So we depend so much upon others instead of opening our own eyes. Instead of learning for ourselves, we wait to be taught. And when there's no teacher, or when we leave school, we think that's it. Finish. Our education is finished. When in actual fact, it's only just begun. And the education in school is really a preparation, or should be, a preparation for the major part of our education later. But what happens actually is that our education in school very often makes us dull instead of wakes us up. We're convinced that, oh, now I got my certificate, that's it, don't need to learn anymore. It's very sad, isn't it? I think we have to break out of this rigid idea, about education. Education is a lifelong process. And so when you talk about practicing in daily life, you mean about the continuation of our education, the learning process. And other people, everyone who we come into contact with in various ways, presents us with an opportunity to learn something. Other people are just like mirrors in which we see our own face. Now, I do not believe that everyone we meet, is part of our karma from the past. But in such a situation like this, yes, I would say there is a strong probability that our karma brings us together like this for a common purpose. And we don't know why. But we are here. We've come together like this to share something. And it's not just a matter of words either. If there is a sympathetic rapport between speaker and listener, something subtle is exchanged. You might call it energy. And perhaps if we could see the energy fields around our bodies, and we've all got them, if we could see them, it would be very interesting to see the ebb and the flow of the energy between speaker and listener. This is why, if we're really interested in a Dharma talk, we feel energized. And certainly, if I have felt this rapport with my listeners, I go back afterwards, I feel so energized, I can't sleep for hours. And before the talk, I might even have been tired, but I draw energy from this. Do you have the same feeling sometimes when you listen to a Dharma talk, that you feel energized? You feel happy and light? Yes? I always do when I listen to someone else's Dharma talk. So we are taking in this energy, which is not a visible thing. It is something that we feel. And nobody loses. It's not that I take from you or you take from me. It is something that we generate and we share. So we have at our disposal, as it were, an inexhaustible supply of energy. When we've made contact with Dharma like this, and we take joy in it, it's like being able to plug into a power point and draw energy from it. And this energy can bring about even physical healing. I've seen it many times. I think it brings about a harmonization in our minds and bodies. And sickness is disharmony, when the four elements, you might say, are out of balance. Then we get sick. So, recovering from sickness is bringing the elements into balance again, a harmonization. Someone else got a question.
Let's suppose a scientist he wants to cure cancer. So they try the experiment of all the animals and they cause great pain to them. If the point is noble in his effort, no? But it creates bad karma in return. How can we reconcile to them?
You see, none of us can live without indirectly being the cause of suffering to something else. You can do your best to abstain from hurting anything. Even so, indirectly, things would die for you. So we're all involved in suffering, and it's not possible to be completely, free from that. The intention, however, and intention is the most important thing, should be to cause as little harm as possible as we pass through this life. Just by being alive, things are dying for us. Life lives on life. Everything is interconnected. So a scientist who performs experiments on animals, his aim is to derive benefit for humans from that. Now, don't think we can justify vivisection and things like that. I think perhaps there might be better ways of getting results than doing it through causing pain to animals. But obviously those scientists see beyond what they're doing. They think they will get good results for many people from what they do. So their intention is not to cause pain, not to inflict pain just for the sake of doing it. Their intention is higher than that. So, I mean, we may not agree with what people do, but we must try to understand, yeah? That is possible. We don't have to agree with what people do, but we must try to see things from their point of view, not just from our own point of view. And we must be careful about not becoming hypocrites and feeling superior to others because we see them doing things that we don't do or that we won't do. But we also are capable of doing evil. And we still do bad things. So really we're not in much of a position to judge and condemn. You see, we're all part of society. We're not independent. We all move together. We are all involved. If we can help other people to understand that inflicting pain on others is not a wholesome thing to do, perhaps they will find better ways to do their work. I was asked a question a few days ago about students who pursue a course in the sciences. And during their studies in biology and so on, they would probably have to kill frogs. It's part of the course, is it not? I don't know if any of you have ever had to do that. Huh? I didn't. I didn't take a science course. But you remember the movie E.T., where they were, the kids in the school were having their science class and having to operate on frogs? And then E.T. sends a message, and the little boy, he sets all the frogs free, you know? There's a message there that this extraterrestrial, he feels the suffering and the pain of others, even frogs, you know. This is a very advanced being, and his compassion is highly developed. But our intention should be to cause as little pain and suffering in the world as we pass through it. The suffering is going on all around us. Tremendous suffering. Why? Much of it comes from having been born, having a body. It is coincidental with having a body. So we get toothache. We get various aches and pains in our bodies. Can we say, oh, I got a toothache from, it is my karma? Huh? I don't think we can be so simplistic about it like that. Indirectly, yes, it would be, because we've been born, because of karma, let us say. And therefore whatever happens to us in the body is directly or indirectly a result of our karma. But we cannot say that everything that happens to us is a direct result of karma, because there are other influences at work. It is natural for our teeth to wear out, to decay, and to ache. It's natural. Much of our suffering, however, is self-caused, man-made. and as such it can be avoided. It's unnecessary. It arises because of our ignorance and our stupidity. And the Buddha once said that there are two things which have no limits. One is space. And space is so vast that we cannot possibly measure it in terms of yards, miles, or kilometers. We measure it in terms of the speed of light. And light travels, we are told, at 186,000 miles per second. That's about 250,000 kilometers per second. We are also told that our sun is 93 million miles away from Earth, or our Earth is 93 million miles away from the sun. That is about 150 million kilometers. To travel this distance between the Earth and the sun, it would take light traveling at 250,000 kilometers per second, just about 8 minutes. 8 minutes to travel 250 million kilometers. But scientists talk about light years. The distance that light could travel in 1 year at 250,000 kilometers per second. How far would light travel in 1 year? And 1 year is nothing. They talk about millions of light years. How can we comprehend this? It is beyond our imagination. So space has no limits, said the Buddha, long, long ago, before there were telescopes and so on. He also said, human stupidity has no limits. To compare these two things, space and human stupidity, how stupid human beings can be. Therefore, it is not surprising that there is so much suffering in the world around us. When the cause of suffering is so great, it's not surprising. If you go to India, you will see so many beggars there. In Bombay alone, I was told, there are 1 million beggars. What's the population of KL? 1 million. Imagine a population the size of KL, just beggars. Population of Bombay is 15 million, and 1 million of them are beggars. Many of them are able-bodied. They can work if there was work for them. But many of them are hideously deformed, either naturally or deformed by others. And you can see them lying on the street in the dirt, unable to stand or walk, just lying there, or maybe just crawling around like crabs. Those people could not possibly have survived as babies without someone to take care of them. And it's not always from compassion that people take care of such horribly deformed babies. They become a business asset. They use them to earn money. So they place these crab people. They're just like crabs. They crawl around sideways or roll over. They place these people on the street in the morning And always there are crowds of people around looking at this freak of nature. And they give money. Small coins in most cases. But that accumulates. And at the end of the day, their owner comes, takes them back, gets the money, gives them a bit of food, and it goes on like that. There are crime syndicates in India, mafia, gangs, that go into the countryside and kidnap little kids, bring them back to the big cities, maim them, cut off their hands and feet, scar them, torture them, mutilate them, to use them as beggars, knowing that people will feel sorry for them and will give money. Such cruelty cannot be expected to go without an effect. It comes back. Anything that involves deliberate cruelty will have an effect. So when the cause is there, the effect will also be there. It's not surprising. And this has gone on for maybe thousands of years. India is the land where the Buddha lived. It has produced many very great spiritual teachers, much wonderful philosophy and wisdom. But like the old proverb says, the stars shine brightest on the darkest night. And so this wisdom and these great people arise in India against a backdrop of incredible ignorance and superstition and cruelty. Population of India now is about 850 million, maybe 900 million soon. And there are so many poor people there. The land has become impoverished because there have been so many people living there for so long. The soil has become infertile in many places. And when people get down to such a level of poverty like that, it is very difficult to come up again. They live like hungry ghosts. Yao Kui. How difficult to think about others and share things with others when you've got so little. And helping oneself and improving one's condition must come from within. And it's not just by working 8 hours a day or 10 hours, 16 hours a day that people get rich. It depends upon other things too. There are many causes of poverty. There are many causes of wealth. They're not accidents. Some of the causes of poverty would be laziness, stupidity, wastefulness, greed, selfishness, and so on. Many causes of poverty. And nobody wants to be poor. Everyone wants to be rich. Becoming rich is also a result of many factors, including generosity, sharing with others joyfully. It's not just a matter of working very hard, there are other things involved too. So the government may pass laws to help the poor people, but if the poor people don't want to help themselves, don't want to share with others, it's very difficult to come up. Another cause of poverty is thinking poor. Because if you think you are poor, you will be poor. Buddhists, those who tread a spiritual way, should never think they are poor. Having discovered the Dharma, we should realize that we are rich. Rich in spirit. And if we are rich in spirit, other things happen. So we should never think we are poor. We should always think we are rich, and we should be rich. This thing that we have found is inexhaustible. Imagine, the Buddha never had a single cent. But who was richer than him? The richest man the world has ever known, the Buddha. Why? Because he didn't want anything. We want lots of things, and so we are poor. No matter how much money we've got, no matter how many possessions we have, the more we want, the more we will be poor. The Buddha was the richest man because he didn't want anything. Everywhere was his home. So it depends how we look at it. We can be rich with nothing. We can be poor with $1 billion. Did you have another question?
Conflict between the Chinese will want to have children to continue the generation. Maybe want to know is that the Buddhists say that will bring children to the world to suffer. So there's a conflict there. And if we just bring children out to the world, we're going to marry more, bring more suffering to the world. That's what happened in India. So whether we should have more children or we should stop the generation from ourselves, I cannot do it because I have married, I got 2 kids already. So how is it supposed to be?
Well, you see, as with all things, I think we have to consider the possible effects of our actions upon others. We can see that the world is terribly overpopulated. That's one of the effects of it. We cannot go on living this way. We have got a very high standard of living. But if we go on living the way we're doing, the standard is going to come down. We're overpopulated. The Earth's resources cannot sustain this population for long. And when the resources dwindle and run out, one of the effects of this is war. We can sit and talk about this intelligently now. we can understand it, and we may be able to restrain ourselves. I'm doing my share for world population control. But uneducated people living in the jungle, in the countryside, not aware of the situation of the world, we cannot expect them to practice birth control and restrain themselves. So this is going to go on. The Pope is a very unwise man, and he preaches that birth control is an evil thing. Why does he say it is evil and against God's will? Because it's unnatural. Oh? Unnatural? Oh yes, we can say it is unnatural. But then again, what isn't unnatural about us? He should be consistent. He should go around naked and not live in a house and not ride in a motor vehicle, not fly anywhere. If he's going to talk about being natural, he's got to be consistent. Because we went against nature long, long ago. We are the only animals, and we are animals, that uses fire to cook our food, or uses fire in any way. No other animals cook their food, they just eat it raw. Does the Pope eat raw meat? He's never thought about this. He's a prisoner of his belief, like most people. We can never go back to living by nature. Sometimes we think about it, oh, go back to nature. Go back to nature? How could we do that? When we think about going back to nature, we usually mean camping in the forest or on the beach for a few days. That's considered going back to nature. Huh? We take lots of equipment with us. Huh? That's not going back to nature at all. Going back to nature means doing it in your pants. Pangsai in your pants. That's natural. Huh? Like little babies. They don't use the toilet. They just do it when they want to do it, anywhere. Huh? And they're trained not to do it like that. We're toilet trained. That is not natural. It's natural to do it in our pants. It's not natural to even have pants. We cannot talk about being natural anymore. We're not natural. We took our evolution in hand millions of years ago. We're not going to go backwards. We've got to go forwards. So, birth control. It is not just a luxury, it is a necessity. Think of the alternatives. They're horrible to consider, not just at the present time, but we have to think about the future generations. What are we going to leave for them? What have we inherited from our ancestors? A big mess, actually. The process of exploitation of the world's resources has gone on for hundreds and hundreds of years, but we have accelerated it. And this is what we're going to leave for our children and future generations? Are we going to wake up now and pass on to them some wisdom? so that our lives will not have been in vain. We have a responsibility to those who come after us. We can't do just whatever we want to do and live in such a wasteful way. It's criminal what we are doing. So the ecological crisis that is overtaking us now has a positive side. Because of it, many people are waking up to the fact that they are responsible, that they are contributing to this. Every time we go to the toilet and press the button, we're contributing to it. It's very convenient, the toilet system, isn't it? You go there, put your waste product there and press the button, out of sight. But it just doesn't disappear like that. It goes somewhere else and it stays in our world, polluting somewhere else. Not our own house, but somewhere down there it's going. Years ago we didn't have toilets like this. We had buckets. Where I lived in England, we didn't have a flush toilet when I was young. We had a bucket. We used to dig a hole in the garden and bury it there. I don't think we're going to do that now. I much prefer the flush toilets. But we must think of the consequences, you see. What happens to it? And what do we do with all this fancy packaging that our food comes in? Plastic bags and so on. They don't break down like banana leaves do. We're all causing pollution. We're all destroying our planet. So we must understand this and try to minimize it, cut down at least, and work together with others who are turning in this direction and help others to understand it too. We can't go on doing like this. And this is also Dharma. Caring, being aware and caring and doing something. Dharma means practical living, not living up in the clouds somewhere. To pay attention and put your garbage in the trash can instead of just buang anywhere really is an act of compassion. Simple thing like that entails compassion, because when you do that, when you put your garbage in the proper place where it can be collected, instead of throwing it on the street or in the park or somewhere, you are thinking about other people. That is an act of compassion. Simple. And it does have an effect. Another question? Yes. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. If it were easy, we'd be there already. No? It's not easy, but it is possible. And this is why we must try to pay attention, be mindful. And remind yourself, whenever you feel depressed or sad or whatever, hold on, it will pass. And it does, because, of course, everything does. It's very important to have an understanding about the law of change. Huh? When we're happy, we don't want it to change. We want it to stay like that. So, at such a time, we would consider the law of change to be against us. It's not against us. It is we who are against it. When we're sad, we can remind ourselves, it will pass, it will change. Just hold on and watch it. And I'm sure you've experienced being depressed or unhappy and wondering however you're going to get out of it, however it is going to change. And later on, you realize, oh, I'm not feeling depressed anymore. What happened to it? Where did it go? When did it go? And there's not a definite moment that you can put your finger on and say, oh, it changed here. It is a process, you know, slowly changing. We can't see our fingernails growing, but we know they grow. If you sit looking at your fingernails, you won't see them grow. But if you look at them once a week, oh, my fingernails need cutting. Huh? So we must be able to remind ourselves when we feel unhappy, hold on, it will pass. It's simple philosophy, but really quite effective. And then about our long-term negative characteristics. Yes, these can be very trying. But if we realize that everyone else has got them and not just we ourselves, it makes it much easier to bear. We must consider them to be not personal qualities, but human qualities. If we alone, out of all the other people in the world, had these things and no one else did, it would be a very terrible problem. But because everyone else has got them, it makes it easier to bear. It also makes us more tolerant when we realize that we've all got these things but nobody wants them. It makes us more tolerant of others and of ourselves. Yeah? And if you look back in your life to the time when you didn't know about Dharma, can you see a difference between then and now? I was talking with a monk some time ago who had someone stay with him, somebody from America. And this monk was also an American. And he was telling me about all his negative qualities and saying, oh, to be a Buddhist and have so many negative qualities. But I said to him, you didn't know what he was like before. Probably he was much worse. By becoming a Buddhist, he's improved, even if he's still got plenty of negative qualities, you see. So, yeah, we have to think, what was I like before this? And I'm sure you'll realize that there's been a change for the better. Yeah? And this is an ongoing process. We have to let the Dharma work inside us. And it doesn't always work quickly. But it is like the yeast in the dough, which makes the dough rise. Don't be in too much of a hurry. You'll disappoint yourself if you are, and you'll fall over your own feet. Slow and steady. And remember, we're not in competition with anyone else. It's not a race that we're running, see who can get there first. It's a matter of self-discovery, self-improvement, and this is often quite slow. Don't be too hard on yourself. Another question?